Hey guys, this is Titan and oh my god, welcome back to another episode from Vedastein. This is amazing, unbelievable, and I guess every other superlative you can imagine. I am honestly so happy that this episode this episode came to be, and this whole series is back. Sort of, you'll see in a bit why only sort of. But yeah, this is Vedastein. For those of you that don't know this series, Vedastein is sort of my original YouTube series, or my first real take on a sort of regular Cities Skylines YouTube series that focuses on a small German town and its surroundings, meaning mostly rural area and beautiful landscape stuff, villages and all that, settled in East Germany in the Saxonian Switzerland region. That is very close to my home, so to say. Now, on the topic for today is the station of the small town or small village, more like, of Schelchwitz. That is, if you maybe watched the previous episode right before this one, then it's right next to it, basically. This village is right next to the Benedictine monastery that was the topic of the last episode, although it's a year ago. Anyway, what I'm doing here on screen really is just preparing this whole area for this small village, and given that the sort of historic village here is on the other side of the river, what we're doing in this episode is the new village that only came to be once the railway was built here. And as a result of that, the centerpiece of this whole build today is the station itself. You see that the station building I'm using is a pretty old one, and probably one of the earliest Cities Skylines assets that are available on Workshop, but I really felt like it's definitely fitting here, although, as you also can see, I pretty much went nuts on it with procedural objects and basically removed everything but the station building, and also had to darken it quite a bit so that it actually looks decent in my game here. Now, about this episode today, I have something important to say, and that is, in the process of, I guess, recording this episode, I think, if I recall correctly, I started recording this episode before I started making Ansburg. And for those of you that actually follow my channel, you know that this must be then 7 months ago or so, which is probably true. And then there was a whole time where I did nothing here. In the meantime, my hard disk died and I lost a whole bit of process I lost almost everything of recorded time-lapse footage. Meaning, for this episode, I tried to, sort of work around that and still be able to show you the process of the creation process of this village. Meaning, the actual time-lapse part will end in just a few seconds, and then I will show you what I did in detail based on some very nice progress shots, as well as some live gameplay. So let's meet again in just a few seconds. So what you just saw was very first progression shot. Through the help of those, I hope to be able to recreate sort of the creation process and the whole creativity and thought process that went into creating the area for this episode. As I already said, the center of the whole build today is the station of Schelchwitz. FYI, in proper railway definition, it's actually not even a station, since it has no switches anywhere. So technically it's just a stop, though I will refer to it as a station. It's a very simple rural station, as you can see. It has 2 platforms, 2 tracks, and itself is pretty run down and not in a very, very best condition. Which is primarily due to the fact that it's like the station of a very small village, and supposedly so far nobody really cared updating it to modern standards. As a result, I placed quite a lot of dirt and crack and damage decals all around the platforms to really bring home the fact that this is quite an old station that hasn't been renovated in the past, let me assume, 30 or 40 years. The only thing that has been updated though are the tracks. As you can see, I used concrete sleepers and pretty clean one those. The station building I already showed you in the time lapse I made from Xavis Surbot. It might be pronounced station. Because even though the asset itself is like super old, in my opinion it definitely very well fits the area here. So what I did was turning the whole building into a PO and removing the platforms. You can see the platforms that come with the station are somewhere underground, hidden. A bit later I also got the idea of adding a smaller building here on the edge of the streets next to the level crossing. And this little building is also made from the main station building. Actually, 2 times, if I recall correctly. Yes, there it is. There was one, and the other one should be somewhere else. This is one, and the other one. There it is. So it's pretty much just this part of the actual station building 2 times, through which I got a very interesting little addition here that makes the whole corner, in my opinion, look much more realistic. I don't know why, but it makes it just feel a bit more realistic, opposing to just probably an empty piece of platform there. That's pretty much it. That is to say, in terms of the creation of the station. So what will follow now are a few more of those progression shots, through which I really hope to sort of show the whole thought and creation process that went into this station. And then I will catch you in the next area for this general area. Next up is the core, the centerpiece of this small riverside village. Now the story for this village is basically that whatever exists here and what got built in this episode only really started off after it was connected to the railway that in real life terms goes between Dresden and Prague. As a result, all the buildings I used here, or pretty much the vast majority of the buildings used here in this build, are 19th century buildings. the actual core of the city, or of the village, that will then also have a church and stuff, will be on the other side of the river, and the topic for the next episode. Still, I placed 2 small half-timbered houses here. One is this restaurant hotel building from Hades that I placed here just so that to sort of still bring home the fact that this area still has its roots, meaning most likely back in the days there used to be a small farm here, or 2 small farms. Other than that, it is primarily the standard buildings I always use for rural builds, meaning some of the low-level cube houses I made. And in this case, I also placed a small school, some generic Euro buildings, same as here, and then some cube houses, and of course what always needs to be in my builds, detailed backyards. There's not really much more for this area, but I really tried to show that whatever is here and the sort of village core that exists here is on a small stretch between the station and the ferry pier that I will talk about in the next part of this episode. So the sort of core of the village is stretched along this, what is this, maybe 100 meter long or 200 meter long road piece, which emphasizes the fact that the station does not really exist to sustain this village here, but it exists to allow access to the actual village on the other side of the river and to the national park area and the hiking grounds that are behind the other village on the other side of the river, which again is a topic for the next episode. But you really can see it that the road curves itself through the village, so most likely it follows an old dirt path that used to be here, and the tallest buildings, or the most, I might say the most prestigious buildings of this village, are all centered along this single road to only really focus on the path from the station to the ferry pier, which will be the next part of this small area. So as I said just a few minutes ago, and you already saw also on the first progression shot for this part of the episode, the village really only exists since the railway going through the village here was built somewhere in the 19th century, and that connects Dresden to Vedastein to Prague. As a result, as I said, the small village got built, stretching along the connection between the station, or stretching along the path between the station and the ferry pier. Now the ferry pier is there to connect this village here to the actual historic village on the other side of the river. So what we see here is basically new Schelchwitz, and on the other side of the river, on the other side of the Veda, is the actual village of old Schelchwitz, which has, you know, a church and cute little half-timbered houses and stuff. Again, topic for the next episode of Vedastein. But this is the whole, reason for this village here and the reason for the ferry pier. Now, the whole region around Vedastein is heavily based on the Saxonian Switzerland region on the border between Germany and the Czech Republic, which is a amazingly beautiful small mountain range with fancy rock formation and amazing hiking paths. And as a result, this ferry pier is also used for day trips from, for example, nearby Dresden. These people would then get out of the train here at Schelchwitz, walk down this road, which again forms the center of the village, and then they would take the ferry onto the other side of the river, where they go hiking or enjoy just the mountain scenery or whatever you can imagine. In that sense, I also placed a large parking space here for, again, day trip traveler from Vedastein maybe, but more likely from Dresden and the general larger surroundings. The parking square really is nothing special as a build itself. It's just one of McWelshman's dirt roads. Around it I placed lots and lots of Avania's parking spaces, those with the little dots. And then I just placed just so many dirt tiles on top of it, to just show that this parking space is nothing too fancy. It's not even paved, it's just dirt. But there also is a playground and this little cafe next to this little cafe, since, if you can imagine, instead of going to the other side, some people might just stop here and, you know, have a cake, have some ice. Oh god, it's really tight in here. Have a cake, have some ice cream, and enjoy the view of the other side, which again, topic for the next episode, and you don't want to miss that one, trust me. So this is the general topic for this area. By itself, there's not much more to mention here, and the techniques used are very straightforward, as you all will also see in the next progression shots. Now, as you saw on that last progression shot I just showed you, the village does not only consist as a connection between the station and the ferry pier, but it also attracted some other people that actually wanted to live on this side of the river, be it because of the very good train connection back in the days, of course, and still today, but train connection was more of a reason to move to a certain place back in the days, or to enjoy the view on the cliffs that are not done yet. So alongside the road and train tracks, I also placed some sort of more fancier and larger buildings that both form an interesting backdrop for the whole area, but themselves also are an interesting piece of scenery. The same is on the other side of the train tracks, with some small detached housing as well as modern apartment buildings for probably the richer people, as you can see that some of them even have boats docked on the river. Then further out, the village really just transitions into farmland, as is the general feeling or the general theme of a large part of this map, of course. Then on the edge of the whole area, I also placed this facility here. These 4 tracks next to each other for about 700 meters. The point of those really is just that cargo trains can stop here on the 2 outer tracks, depending on the direction from which they come, of course. Cargo trains can stop here in case there is a passenger train that needs to go through first. This is something I took from the real life location, and it's really just a small detail that by itself just looks much more interesting compared to just normal tracks going that way. One last glimpse of the whole village of New Schelchwitz, so to say, and I definitely have to say I quite like how this whole village area turned out. Oh god, you can see in the FPS that quite difficult at the moment. I'm quite confident, I'm quite satisfied with how this whole village area turned out, and I hope you like it too. What will follow now are just a few more additional progression shots that again just somewhat show the whole creation process of this. And actually that's it from my side now already. After that I will show you some proper cinematics really highlighting the details of this build and the general feeling of this build. In that sense, it's already time for me now to say thank you for watching this a bit of a strange episode maybe, but as I already said at the beginning, I had to do it like this since I lost a large part of the time-lapse files. Definitely tell me if you like this bit of a different approach to the creation process and to Vedastein. I would very much like to hear your feedback or to read your feedback. The next episode of Vedastein will be almost spectronormal. That's it from my side. I really hope you liked this episode, and then of course, like it if you liked it, and write a comment if you have anything to say. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, of course. And as usual, if you really want to support me further, you can do so over on Patreon for small rewards like early access to assets or videos. The link is in the description, and of course, a huge thanks to the people who already support me on Patreon. You are amazing. That's it. As I said, following now will be some more progression shots, and then some cinematics really showing the plus side of this whole build and emphasizing the small little details of this build. Until then, have a great time and see you next week in the next episode of Vedastein.